You have a lot of chefs coming through now, which learn to cook on YouTube and Instagram. So it tastes of nothing, but it looks good. Times have changed and expectations have changed. Everything has changed about it. But the amount of chefs in the industry has reduced. So therefore, it's easier for someone who's been in the industry for 2 years to fast track to the top because owners are desperate. So you go in, you've got a little bit of skill, you're a CDP, within 18 months, you could be a head chef. Dining became fashionable. Chefs became the new rock stars, which I think was the worst thing that ever happened. Everybody wanted to be on TV.
Nobody in the kitchen. Nik, welcome to Hospitality Insights. Pleasure to have you. I know you're going through a very busy period, so I appreciate it even more like now finding time because we talk about it. We said that we're going to plan this for probably September. I reach out to you. You were more than happy to do it with 1 day a week. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Perfect.
Great.
So could you please give us a bit of context, like about your career? Like how did you get into this industry from the time you started basically to today? Give us a bit of background.
I think I fell into it like a huge percentage of chefs did. I grew up in Cornwall. During the 90s, there really wasn't much. There was the end of a recession. There wasn't much in the way of job prospects. I left school with a driving license. Well, when I was 17, I got my driving license, but I literally left school with very little qualifications. Yeah. My father is the senior partner of his own law firm, and he kind of despaired because all I wanted to do was surf and chase women. And
which he knew is not a career to
I don't know. It's a pretty good career to me. And so he enrolled me in a legal executive course to try and give me a career. And so from school, I went to work for my father. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And I did quite well. I did all right. I kind of knuckled down, but I had a realization I wasn't ever going to be a lawyer. That wasn't a career path for me. Grey men in grey suits. And all I wanted to do was be on the beach. So any excuse I could make to not be at work, to go surfing, I had a flat tire and I couldn't make it. So I had, I'd always get a flat tire at the beach or whatever. And I'd wash dishes in restaurants, as a kid. So I kind of had a feel for it. I wasn't too bad at looking after myself because I grew up with just me and my father. And so I cooked a lot of the meals, after school and stuff like that. So I had a feel for I was quite self-sufficient as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so I finished working for my dad and I kind of bounced around. And I think my father despaired, and it came to a kind of a head when he said, you can't live in my house unless you get a proper job or you do something, you start doing something, you're not living in my house. So I did what everyone would, and I went on a ski season. So I got the money together and I went on a ski season and I started working washing dishes. And that was it. I was in Andorra. So I skied during the day and I washed pots in the evening. Like probably a large percentage of chefs out there. And I'd love to say that I wanted to be a chef from when I was 11 and I used to bake cakes with my mum and or my nan or whatever.
None of that.
Absolute bollocks. I lived on toast and pot noodle sandwiches for about 5 years of my life when I was a junior chef, and like most. And so I felt comfortable. I felt I'd found my level washing dishes, but I'd found my level. I'd found
happiness. I guess is what it is.
I suppose. Yeah. And it afforded me the freedom to do other things. I could still go out and get drunk with my mates. I could.
It was a bit low responsibility in a way, comparing to the previous job, right?
Compared to the law. But go back to that. That really set me up. It set me up well in life because I had an introduction to a world that I would never have ever have encountered. That was my dad's life, and also I realised because he was so prominent and he was one of the most preeminent lawyers on the Western Circuit in England. He was the first solicitor, I should say, to ever appear in the High Court of London. as a barrister. So they, quick recap, they relaxed the laws on who could appear in what court. And my father was one of, I think, 3 or 4 solicitors that were invited. They didn't have to pass a bar exam. So he was one of the first solicitors to ever, I think it was potentially a murder appeal or something he did. I was never going to emulate that. I was never going to better that. I'd have probably been a competent advocate, but I would never have achieved what he achieved. And I think looking back now, probably had a little bit of imposter syndrome. That's probably why I dipped out. I knew I would never achieve what he'd achieved because I didn't have his level of academic abilities. So it was the right move. And I did a few ski seasons. I worked in a couple of restaurants. I kind of felt my way around, but nothing was really sticking. And so I thought, this isn't for me. And this must have been 99-ish, 2000. So I went, the worst job I've ever done. I went to a mortgage company and I was cold calling, selling mortgages on the phone. It was horrific.
Getting a lot of no's and people annoyed.
Put it this way, you can say what you like to me now and it's water off a duck's back. The names I was called. And I did that for 6 months.
Oh.
And I earned really good money. It was incredible money because we were ripping people off, basically. It was, it would be so nothing was regulated then. So it was after the mortgage industry was
deregulated. So whoever said no was already a victim. Yes.
Yeah,
whoever said yes was a victim.
Absolutely. So you deregulate. Once the mortgage industry was deregulated, all these boiler rooms set up with what called subprime mortgages. So basically you would go through a checklist with someone and they were on benefits. They'd lost their job. They were on benefits, but you were putting like the dog down as an occupant of the house, because the more people you had living in the house, the higher loan to value you could give them. Oh. So we were giving out 130, 140, 150% loan to value. Now the regulations have changed and they can't do that. But it was probably 5 years that there was this. It was like the Wild West of mortgages. And I sold mortgages for 6 months. And you find a lot out about yourself when you have to just pick up you're 7 hours, 8, 9 hours a day, just ringing people, asking them if you want them to get their house repossessed. We'll lend you some money. But the thing is, these people go round in a dialer. So every 18 months, their house is on the point of being repossessed again, because these are people who are not good with money. Yeah. And they're just preyed upon by these companies. And in the end, it took its toll on me and I just didn't show up. I didn't go in. Got my end of month, my check for. So then from there, got my commission check, and I never showed up again.
From there back to the kitchen, what happened?
So after that, I took a job at a place called Hotel Tresanton, which is at the time had a star down in Cornwall. So I went in as a commie chef, and I got my head down, and I wanted to go back into the kitchen. I realised how much I enjoyed it. How much it suited me and it suited my personality. And so I was looking for jobs, then a friend of mine worked there. He got me a job there. And then that's where it really started.
Yeah. I guess sometimes you need to go through a few jobs, especially when you're at a younger age, to realize what you like and even probably come back to, like you did.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And I fell back into it. But then because I was in a good kitchen, well-structured kitchen, they wanted me to go to college. So I went to college, did my qualifications, and really kind of kicked on from there. From there, I went to London for a little bit and worked at the River Cafe, which was really good. And then met someone who worked on the yachts. So did a 2.5 years down at work. Then went to work for a Russian. Got onto a Russian billionaire's yacht, which was really good. Worked in his house in Switzerland as well, and from then, I moved back to Cornwall and met a guy called Jude Kerryarmer. And Jude had bought a restaurant in our village, not our village, we don't own the village, but in the village I grew up in. And went to work for Jude. And that really was the beginning for me, where I I started to learn. My palate developed. Jude is half Maori, half Malaysian, so his food was out of this world.
Fusion as well.
It was fusion. When fusion was just beginning as well, and he taught me to season with soy and lime rather than just salt and lemon. And he taught me lots of different techniques of Asian cookery, which I still use now.
Would you say that he was one of your mentors at that point, or
100%?
Yeah.
And to this day, he's still one of my best friends. We're still very much in contact. He won one of the courses on the Great British Menu recently, got it to the banquet. So he's done really well. He's kicked on. He's got a couple of restaurants now, and sadly his wife passed away in 2019, which hit everyone quite hard. But yeah, he's hopefully going to be coming to Jersey in November to do a takeover at Sumas, which will be good.
That'll be interesting. But how did you get in Jersey then? You know, because from working in the UK and being kind of like happy with what you've done, and you know what kind of like got you here?
So rewind a little bit. I had the opportunity to buy a restaurant, so I bought a restaurant in 2007. Sold that in 2010, just after the economy crashed. And then I met my wife, we bought a pub, and we ran a pub in Cornwall, very successful pub for 8 years, called the Victoria Inn. And then we sold that just before COVID.
Wow. You got the timing right all the time. Huh?
Well, I didn't. The first one I didn't.
Oh, the first one was in the middle of it.
I had to trade through a recession.
Yeah, you're right.
The credit crunch, but the second one we got out, more luck than judgment, but we got out just before COVID. Moved to Hampshire, and then COVID happened, and we were kind of stuck in a housing estate, you know, in Hampshire, in the middle of Hampshire, and I was going nuts. And then we kind of sat down and said, we need to get out of here. What shall we do? And we chose Jersey. I used to come to Jersey as a kid, so I've been here a few times with my old man. So I love it. I really.
So it's a good memory already. You know,
really good memories. I've got a few friends here as well, which helped. And so we ended up here August. So we're here exactly 2 years. I've been here.
Okay. Same restaurant since then?
No, I came and I worked at the Oyster Box. So I started at the Oyster Box, and then I left there in the December, and then I went to Sumas. The job at Sumas came up, and that was more suited to me than working down at St. Bernard's.
How do you see a difference between hospitality here in Jersey? Because I feel like we are a bit more on a different environment here in Jersey. And Ireland as a whole, I think islands in general, I think they're a slightly different environment than being on a mainland, whichever that might be. How do you see the difference in between the two? Do you see a huge difference?
No, not a massive difference. I see there's a captive audience here. But there's still the same peaks and troughs here. You still have the same Tuesday lunches where you're wandering around, wondering where everybody is. I think that's just hospitality across the board. I don't think there's any massive differences. Obviously, getting produce here is a challenge, but I worked on the Isles of Scilly before, which is 30 miles off the coast of Cornwall, and you have exactly such as it's a slightly smaller body of water, but it's still in the middle of the Atlantic, and it still takes 24 hours to get produce across there. So you have to plan ahead. There has to be you have to be working 2 days ahead. So for me, it's a small community. That's what I come from in England. So that doesn't really change. You keep yourself to yourself. You don't talk about people behind their backs because everybody knows everything. And never let the truth get in the way of a good story. That's what it's like in Cornwall. So if someone's going to say something about you, they're going to say it regardless of the content. It's coming from a small community in Cornwall. No, I don't see much difference with Jersey. There's a bit more money here, but that's to be expected with the industry and the.
Is that more money here in chefs' pockets, or is more money in as a whole?
We're better off here.
Yeah.
We're better off here, yeah. As an employee, I'm not sure. As an employer, that's to be seen. I would like to do something for myself here. I would like to. I
was going to ask, I would like coming from two places that you owned previously, I can see you kind of like following the same path and thinking about getting your own place.
Potentially, yeah. I've spoke to Paul about it. We've discussed it. We've discussed doing something together. We recently looked at a pub together, but the maths didn't stack up.
Yeah.
We've had a few conversations. We have quite regular conversations about doing something outside of Sumas, pushing some outside catering, doing stuff in people's houses, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
because I think you got like quite a valuable experience that whether he could use or you could put into practice, to make you work.
Yeah.
I think, these Sumas experience could expand to something else.
Absolutely. And for me, it's got to, there has to be an end game to being here. My wife's got a good job now, so she's happy. She's settled. My daughter's settled in school. We've got a nice house. We're living in a nice part of the island, and really, now I've kind of found my feet here, and I know the lay of the land. It's just about finding the correct opportunity, opportunity, and something will come. I'm a firm believer in you don't force it; it will come and find you. If you force it, you end up making stupid, expensive mistakes.
Is Paul the only? Does he have any other places apart from Sumas? Or is he the only one? The only one, huh?
Anyway,
so yeah, I think it's quite a big jump for him as well, because I don't know how long Sumas has been, but I'm sure it's been years and years.
26 years.
Yeah.
It's been
I found it
now.
here when I came like 11 years ago. So
yeah,
ages. So then not jumping into a different business since then, it might be quite difficult for him, I guess, as well.
I think
or it wasn't the right opportunity, probably.
I also think you have to have the right team in place. You have to have the right dynamic. And if you start to branch out and you spread yourself too thin, you end up diluting everything you do, and it all becomes a bit opaque. So Sumas is I don't like to say it's a strong brand, but it's a stalwart of the island. It's got a strong reputation.
Absolutely.
If we can get the correct infrastructure behind me, so a good, strong sous chef who wants to step up into a head chef position in a couple of years, then absolutely that will be the right move. The opportunity for a pub came up a few weeks ago, and we looked at it mainly because it had a huge amount of staff accommodation with it. That we would have heavily subsidized the rent on the pub. The numbers on the pub for me didn't make sense. You'd have to have made a lot of adjustments. You have to have made a lot of changes, which then you would have lost a huge tranche of your customers. So your customer base, you put 25% on all your prices, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Probably 70% of your
especially on a
clientele.
place like Jersey where people get kind of familiar with prices quite
absolutely, and then you've got to spend a year being destroyed on Facebook because you don't care about the locals and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really wasn't a position we wanted to put ourselves into. Also, we would have had to have borrowed probably 50-60 grand, and at the moment you're looking at 10% on that. So again, you have to factor that in, and then who knows what's going to happen with prices next year. Energy prices are going to go up next year, so we kind of we park that one off. But is
it got to be a pub or a restaurant? Does it really matter, or it's just got to be the right setup?
It's got to be the right setup. I think town would be a good shout, because town seems to be busy when we're quiet. So in the winter, September through seems to be when town is busy. You've got a captive audience there of all the businesses, the banks, the financial institutions, etc. People are, even though it's 4 miles, trying to get people to go from town to Gorey. Goodness me,
Guilty. Yeah, I genuinely can't remember when it was the last time.
We need to make a day of it.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I keep saying, there are quite a few places there that I should go to. And, funny enough, I never actually been to Sumas. And at some point, I was such a big fan of like all these fancy restaurants. And I was going quite often out just to, especially when I was still a chef, kind of like learn new things from people. Because like just by seeing a new dish, you kind of like spark some ideas into your mind.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know why. Like Gorey's always seemed quite a far distance.
End of the world,
it's
isn't
crazy,
it?
Huh? It's such a beautiful location. Yeah, summer is probably one of the best places to be fair. Yeah,
I love it. It reminds me of a Cornish fishing village. It's got that the same feel as a Corsica. I feel quite at home there. It's, there's the Dolphin pub, which is a little bit rough, which reminds me of home, which is good. So yeah.
But yeah, okay, so you've done fine dining quite a bit. How do you see the times changing, from when you started to now? Because as you mentioned, you started in a team that was quite well established and probably separated. Commis chef was commis chef, sous chef was sous chef, and wasn't probably that much of, at least from my...
You had grades of commis.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing.
You had grades. You were first commis, second commis.
Now probably you
apprentice.
have the commis chef sometimes doing similar job to a head chef just because the time changed.
Times have changed, and I kind of go back and forth with this in my head, and times have changed and expectations have changed as well. So dining expectations have changed. Cost of everything has changed massively. I think my first job, I was about £3.50 an hour.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. And the prices of dishes weren't too dissimilar. So, and back then there was no, I think they'd only just started charging VAT on food in England.
Oh, okay.
In restaurants. I can't remember when VAT came, but VAT came in the 90s on hot food in restaurants. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, restaurateurs didn't pay VAT, which that's a big kicker in the UK, because when you buy produce in, it's 0 rated, but then you have to you add 20% to it. So you're basically a tax collector for the government. So you have to add 20% to all of your menu prices, but there's very little to offset. There's very little you can offset against that in the UK. So it's different to Jersey, where it's 5% across the board. Anyway, I digress. How's it changed? There's more restaurants, so there's more choice. So when I was younger, there was 1 or 2 restaurants in every town. Now there's 3 Wetherspoons on the same road. Every pub is doing food. There's a pizza restaurant and 2 or 3 Indian restaurants, 2 or 3 Chinese restaurants. So everything has changed about it, but the amount of chefs in the industry has reduced. So therefore, it's easier for someone who's been in the industry for 2 years to fast track to the top, because owners are desperate. So you go in, you've got a little bit of skill, you're a CDP. Within 18 months, you could be a head chef, but you don't have any of the training.
Is it fair to say that the quality then dropped from when you started to now because of this fast track, career?
Depends where you're going. If you go to a country house hotel, no,
they still keep their standards.
They've got their standards, and arguably it's got slightly better. You go to a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star. Well, they always maintain a standard. What I think has happened, the culture has changed within kitchens. Whereas when I started, it was regimented. You wore a talk, you had to wear a hat, you had big stiff chef jackets that made you walk around like you were wearing a puffer jacket. Now you got guys in shorts and t-shirts in kitchens, listening to music, happy-go-lucky, high five, and the kind of casual dining has taken over. And the pubcos are to blame for that. After the deregulation of the Monopolies and Mergers Commission, big pub companies popped up and started buying up and pushing out landlords. And then
to get these big chains now established.
Wetherspoons was one of the first. And what then happened is they started to push out the drinkers, because you don't make any. You do, but you don't make the money you do on dining. So then pubs were repackaged and sold back to us as casual all-day dining. And so you can go out and have a meal on a Tuesday at 4:00 after you pick your kids up from school. Dining ceased to become a special occasion. You had this flurry of places opening, and then everything went pop. And then it happened again. And the first time it happened, I thought, it's just a bubble. It'll all recede. It will go back to being nice, independently owned. And all the companies did is they just wound up. They opened up under a new name, or they sold off to a venture capitalist company, came in, bought up, and sold them off to someone else. Started Jamie Oliver's, the Gordon Ramsay's. They put their names to dining rooms that they've never set foot in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the public bought it. Oh, we're going to Jamie Oliver's tonight. Do you think?
But that's crazy how people think, that they probably get Jamie cooking their pasta or something in the...
Oh, we're going to Jamie Oliver's tonight.
That's crazy, yeah.
Mate, you're in Runcorn.
But that was a good advertisement, I guess, all these companies did well from that perspective, putting these guys, into this good light, a good light.
But they never made any money.
Yeah, fair to say.
They all went.
Some of them went bankrupt.
They all went tits up. They never made any money. So I think I digress again, but yeah, that's how it's changed. Dining became fashionable. Chefs became the new rock stars, which I think was the worst thing that ever happened. Everybody wanted to be on TV.
Nobody in the kitchen.
You had a generation after kind of the 90s generation, the 2005 to 2013, those kids, and I use that, I don't choose that as a pejorative, but those guys came through thinking it was going to be like an episode of MasterChef, that they were all going to be standing around with tweezers, putting a borage flour.
He looked too romantic. He looked too fashion.
Pulled focus and slow motion stuff on Netflix. And the reality is, it's shit. And it burns, and it's hard, and it's long hours. You'll have no friends, And I don't like to kind of downplay the industry because I love it.
But comparing to what some people say, I think it's a fair.
The dream that was sold is not reality at all. And then reality kicks in, and then they're working 60, 70 hours a week. They're not seeing their friends. They're not seeing their family. Then you have the explosion of everyone's talking about mental health, and everyone had mental health problems because of the state of the industry. And now COVID happened, and we lost the older generation of chefs. So people my age, a little bit older, kind of 50 above, said, do you know what? It's easy to go and drive delivering food for Ocado or for Sainsbury's. So you've now lost you've lost a cornerstone of the industry. You've lost the experience that we had. You have a lot of chefs coming through now, which learn to cook on YouTube and Instagram. So it tastes of nothing, but it looks good. And I've got a guy in my kitchen now, a guy called Jack, really, really talented guy. But when he came to work for us, some of his skill levels were up here, but his basic knowledge was that of someone who had done 2 days in college. And I couldn't join the dots. I'm like, how can you do that?
Try to figure out the gap. Huh?
How can you do this, but you can't do this? And I worked out that he'd worked in a couple of good places and just picked up little bits and hadn't been trained properly. So he'd picked up all the bits that were interesting to him. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'll do that. And that became this kind of strange, cobbled together repertoire of nothing. And so we've spent the last year, I had a very honest conversation with him, and he won't mind me talking about this because we've had
going through the basics.
Absolutely, yeah. And we stripped it right back to basics. And I taught him how to make, he could make bread, but because he really enjoys it. So now he makes probably one of the best focaccias I've ever tasted. And I said to him, you make this consistently every day for a year, I'll let you put some rosemary in it, or I'll let you put some garlic in it. The moment it's just a basic sea salt focaccia, but every single day now.
Get it right.
Repetition, because that's how you get better. And it's kind of slowly sinking in at first. Now he's got it and he understands, and now he asks pertinent questions. Before he was afraid to ask a question because he didn't want to.
He was insecure, bro.
He was insecure and didn't want to come across as stupid. And like I had to say to him, it's not a stupid. If you do so, if you freestyle that, if you eyeball it and freestyle it, I'm going to taste it. I've done this long enough. I'm not stupid. I can tell with the color of it.
Yeah.
It's not been done right. So rather than rushing off to check your phone to look at Great British Chefs because you're too scared to ask the question, I'm not going to shout at you. I'm not I'm not unreasonable. And now I've got a really, really, really good, solid chef de partie who I trust.
Yeah, but it comes a lot from him. He could have been, don't show me this kind of stuff, because I've seen, that Gordon was doing this way. Or
there was a lot of that.
was a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And I used to say, he said, I see this on Instagram. I was like, how does it taste? I don't know. I was like, exactly. I can make a photograph look amazing. I can spend 6 hours editing a photograph to make it look amazing. How does it taste? Well, I don't know.
It's funny you say this,
Put
because
your phone away then. It's not interested.
Steve from Somerville, he was like, I get sometimes, clients or even the owners of the places where he used to work coming with the pictures like, can you do this? And it was like, no, I never tasted it.
Exactly.
If you were probably a younger chef, it's like, no problem, I can see how it looks like.
I can do that, yeah.
But it's crazy, how different the mentalities are.
We used to buy cookbooks and we'd read them and we'd look at recipes. I remember buying French Laundry and just fawning over French Laundry for months, reading every page. I must have read that book cover to cover. I've still got the original one that I bought, and it's knackered, it's hanging apart. It's falling apart, sorry. But I read every page and I absorbed everything, because Thomas Keller was the messiah back then. He was the best restaurant in the world. And, this kind of mercurial California chef who was doing better food than anybody else in better French food than anyone was in France. And I absorbed that. Now you can just go and read a bio online, find out a little bit about it, look at a few pictures. People,
everything moved too fast.
It moved too fast. But I say to Jack, borrow books. I've got thousands of pounds worth of books, and I've lent him some books. Said, "Did you read them?" He's like, "No, not really." And I'm like,
everybody is interested just in the summary,
Yeah, that's it. Just look at the pictures. Can we do that? No, no, that's not our style of food. But absorb it, read the story, read the history. If you want to immerse yourself in this industry, look at what went before you. Don't write off French fine dining. Don't write off Nouvelle Cuisine. Look back into history. See why. Look at food now and understand the journey that food has been on. Look at El Bulli. Look at, go back to 1975 when that restaurant first opened, and understand the journey that restaurant has been on. I don't ever dream of doing food like they did at El Bulli. It's not my style. But
knowing why they done it or how they done it.
Same as music.
Yeah. And it's crazy because now that you're saying about this, we're also going to go in the topic of schools, whether this skill gap can be kind of like filled with a good school or with good teachers or with good, I don't know, people that could pass on this information. But I remember quite well when because I've done Highlands here, it wasn't huge, but I guess certain parts were still useful. Because I was working in a Michelin star place here at the time, and then everything was seen, stupid. And I'm like, why do we do this when everybody's doing foams? And, so just learning how to do bechamel, for example. I'm like, who's using bechamel these days? Come on. And then after that, I realized, you know what? It was actually quite a good skill. And not in terms of like using the bechamel, knowing how to combine the ingredients together.
And the science behind it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Understanding the science.
Exactly.
I remember buying, I got the train from Cornwall to London to go meet up with a friend. And I went all the way across London to a shop that I'm not sure is there anymore in Notting Hill called Books for Cooks. And they had a really great little restaurant in the back as well. And buying Harold McGee's book, this encyclopedia, it was originally, I think it's called, I don't know what it's called now, but originally it was called The Science and Law, Lore, The Science and Law of the Kitchen. And buying it and then reading it on the tube and not understanding anything. It was a science book. It was a chemistry book.
Yeah.
But having that book, because I'd read that's how Heston had taught himself to cook by reading that book. And then I've been thinking, oh, Christ, I know nothing about this. Distill this and, take 12 parts of this and all these.
And the process is
xanthan gums and things.
Things
I knew nothing about. But that became a reference. That book then became a reference because I read it and I tried to understand parts of it. As I've got older, now I'm who I am now and where I am and the journey that I've been on. I'm now fascinated by science and I read a lot of science stuff now. And now it makes sense. I don't want to do molecular gastronomy, but I understand the principles of it. And a lot of people say it's Emperor's New Clothes, it's fart and fiddle, whatever. But I understand it and it serves a purpose. within gastronomy as a whole and the journey that gastronomy's on. And in 10 years' time, we'll look back and some people will go, what a waste of time. And other people will say it's key in the evolutionary steps of hospitality and the evolution of what we're doing. Yeah. And who knows where food's going.
Well, the thing is, like in any other business, there are trends.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, if you want to be good in your league, you still need to kind of keep up, whether you will implement them into your business or not, being aware.
Knowledge is power.
Well, exactly.
Knowledge is power, yeah.
What are the trends, by the way? Do you see any trends this year or like the past 2 years? Is there something specifically? I know you're kind of like going on classics.
I see a lot of the classics coming back.
Okay.
So Mark Sargent, who used to work for Gordon Ramsay, he's got a fantastic restaurant in Kent. He's now gone back to the old school fishnet Villeroy plates. He's doing the terrine with the leeks around the outside.
Yeah.
He's gone back to the old, like if you read Marco Pierre White, White Heat, he's doing all those old classics. I think he did Pigeon en Vasset the other day, which I've not seen for 30 years, 25 years. But I'll follow him I don't follow many chefs on social media, but I follow him. And he's reinventing all these old classic 70s, 80s, 90s dishes, flooding the plate with sauce and things like that, and peach melvas. And so I think a lot of the classics will come back because they do eventually. Yeah.
It's like a black tie, it's always going to be there, whether you're going to go with crazy colors at some point, eventually you still need it.
Yeah. And it's fashion and music and food. They're all secular. Secular, I kind of struggle with that word. I shouldn't say it. They will go in cycles.
Yeah.
Cyclical.
Yeah.
Cyclical. Sorry.
Cycle,
They're cyclical. Yeah. And I see a lot of the classics coming back around. I kind of, with Sumas, I stick to what we know. Paul gave me a remit when I joined. He said, we need to do X, Y, and Z. This is where we need to be. This is how much I need to take from this business. This is where I want it to be. I need it to be back here. I think it struggled through COVID. Everybody did. And like everyone, you worry that your customers are not going to come back. And I know a lot of restaurateurs that did that and thought, this is the end. This is it. I think Sumas has been here long enough.
Yeah. But they kept their identity, which I think, no matter who came in place, I guess Paul was the kind of guy keeping the balance. It was like, look, this is what we are about.
Yeah.
From here, be as creative as you can be, but this is what we kind of like keep in place, I guess.
But we're not there
that was the conversation, I guess.
Absolutely. We're not there to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We are, our clientele ranges from 50 to 85. Yeah, that's the bulk of our clientele. So they have a very specific taste. They like good sauces, good well-made classical sauces. They like beurre blancs. They like hollandaise. They like béarnaise. They like all those, the mother sauces, the classical mother sauces. And that's what Paul said, that's the cornerstone of our restaurant has always been a good sauce.
But then you can tell already that there are quite a few businesses that they don't know who they cater for. They don't know like their audience, their customers basically.
Yeah.
So for him to know already, it was like, this is the age gap. Probably he's got an idea, even let's say male, female, but that's kind of like couples, I guess, in this place. But knowing that, you're already on a winning kind of team. I think you cater for that kind of like people. You already kind of like win,
and you have to play to the audience. You have to play to the crowd. If you want to stay there, but you want your business to survive, you have to play to the crowd. And if your customers are saying one thing and you are doing something else, you're not going to be there very long. You have to play to the crowd, and we do that. Yeah, and I think we do it well.
Absolutely. I mean, they pay the bills, they keep the business afloat. It makes sense.
What's Neil saying? Without them, there is no us.
Well, fair point.
Yeah.
But then obviously you always need to kind of adapt to whatever the island has to offer. That's why some people don't understand, that just looking into a book, that was done by someone in the US where they use totally different ingredients might not help you that much in Jersey. So I guess you need to adapt to.
You have to adapt and you have to use what's around you.
Yeah.
And some days you'll have a supplier ring you and say, oh, we've got 7 crates of something that's been lost in Guernsey. And then you have to think on your feet. you know.
Yeah. But that's where the experience, like you having the experience, you know how to adapt.
A pallet of lamb gone missing, right? Okay, well I've got a pre-order tomorrow, and they've got 22 lamb on it. Right, I have to rethink this.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to school, because we kind of touch on that subject.
Yeah.
Did you do any cooking school, anything related to
Me in school personally? No.
Nothing. No, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong.
No,
about
I
this
didn't.
Because
No.
quite a few people actually, I think there are more people that did. And even myself, I've done a bit of school, but nothing major. And I
did it when I was younger, when I was like 12, 13, 14, when you had to do home economics. But as soon as it came to making my choices for in school, I didn't cook.
In terms of cooking, no school. So do you feel like, I've done it, as I said, I've done a bit. I didn't really feel like it was groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. It's just more of I was passion.
Oh, sorry. I went to college.
Oh, you did?
Sorry. I thought you meant when I was in school as a kid. No, yes. So when I joined Tresanton, they put me through college. There was part of when I joined as a commis chef, that was part of the deal.
Okay.
So this was, I think they've got 3 rosettes now, and they're still going strong. But when I joined them, that part of my contract was I had to go to college, and I did the old City and Guilds qualification, which is a good. The 706.
Yeah, I think that's what I done. Yeah, if I remember well, because then it was when I finished, it changed to something else, which was a bit all over the place. But I don't know what's the situation at this point. But it was just like once a week, 1 day a week. What can you really learn in college?
So I did full time.
Oh, wow.
So I was full time college, and it was really good. It was great.
I bet that at the time it was a lot different.
And it was there was good banter, and the standard was really good. And you know, my Stuart Matheson, who was my tutor, I'm still in contact with him now. He used to come and eat at my pub.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And criticise me. I wouldn't have done it like that.
Do you think school is important in this industry? Would you say that it is?
Absolutely.
Can you learn only by doing it in restaurants, or ideally you want to still go through some sort of like school to have a better understanding of the
fundamentals, the basics? You know, the amount of chefs that can't make a soup. Yeah, but that's what, day 2, day 3 at college you make a soup? There's a lot of chefs who can't make a soup. They don't understand it. They don't understand the basics, the cornerstones, the fundamentals of what make food, even if it's making a lasagna. There's a lot of chefs, a lot of young chefs now, they wouldn't know how to make a lasagna. And that's stuff you cook at home.
Yeah.
That's stuff my wife cooks very well. But I'm sure there are chefs that can't do the basics. Go to college.
They know how to do foams, but they don't know that.
That's it. Yeah, they could run. Don't run before you can walk. That's always my advice to them. You know, just take your time. It's a long career path. Yeah, take your time. Learn your trade. Immerse yourself in it. Enjoy it. Enjoy being a commie. Enjoy being a chef de partie.
Go step by step.
Don't try and get to the big bucks too quick, because the responsibility you have. You know, if you're in a big restaurant, you're dealing with a multi-million-pound budget. You're having to budget for wages. You have to do your food budgets. That's a skill that comes with time. You know, you might be one in 100 people who are fantastic with, finance, and at the age of 17, 18, 19 to do financial forecasts and flowcharts or whatever. I doubt it very much. But especially if you're coming from, no education background because a lot of kids do come through into hospitality because that's their only option. So we have, you would think about that, when I was younger, it was hospitality, hairdressing, or the armed forces if you had no qualifications. So that's we're like the French Foreign Legion. We'll take anyone. And so don't run before you can walk. And enjoy it. Enjoy having no responsibility. Enjoy not having the burden of being a head chef. Mm. It might be good for your ego to be a head chef, but that's why you see so many young head chefs fail, hate the industry, they walk away, they blame the industry, they're blaming this. It's not. It's take your time, understand it, and it will give back to you. Mm. I love it.
And then you'll get better. If once you get all this information, you'll be in a better situation to decide what you want to do with your future. Yeah. Because probably you jump too early to conclusions this way. And also, I keep saying it, it might look a bit dramatic, but, as a chef in general, like not necessarily head chef or commis chef, can be whichever, you can literally kill people. Like it's to that level. Obviously, you don't think about it because if you think about it, you're gonna go crazy. But if you don't know about allergies, if you don't know about intolerances, if you don't know about all this stuff, which to be fair, it comes in time, and you need to kind of like study it in a way,
and understand cooking times.
Well, yeah,
and understand. You why am I getting 30 complaints? Well, you've been cooking a year, and you've got complex things on your menu that you've seen on wherever on social media. You've been cooking 18 months and you're not using the correct techniques. You don't understand the techniques. You don't understand what you're cooking, and you're getting complaints because it's either it's raw or it's burnt or take your time, learn each section, learn and go and work for a top chef. Go and find a chef that resonates with you, whether it be Paul Ainsworth, Tom Kerridge, whoever, and try and get into their kitchens. Daniel Clifford. Go and do a year, 18 months, whatever, with these guys. That education is invaluable.
But do you think like this is still like when I went through my kind of like progression in the kitchen, I did a bit of head chef for like up to a year. It's quite hard. I must admit it is difficult. I did go like gradually through all the steps and got there eventually, but no matter what, once you get hit with that position, it's actually a lot more difficult than you think, because it's not just the cooking is the easiest part actually. Well, that's how it felt for me. Cooking was just relaxing more than anything else. There are other things, financial stuff that you need to worry about.
Managing people. That's the hardest. That was the bit for me that was the final piece for me, was learning how to manage people. And I went through the stages of trying to be nice, being reactionary, and you go through different kind of stages of evolution, personal evolution. And now I find my biggest ally as a manager of people is compassion, because you catch far more bees with honey than you do vinegar.
Fair.
Yeah. So not being soft. And I say to them, don't take my fairness and kindness as stupidity or weakness, because underneath it, there's a raging narcissist. This is just a facade, all right? Yeah. And I've found now, for me, the most important thing is stabilizing a team, keeping the same team for as long as I possibly can. I take more pleasure in that than anything else. Building a really good, strong, loyal brigade who believe in what you do. They have to believe in what you do. If you've got people on board who don't believe in what you're doing, you're on a hiding to nothing. And I found as a manager, that's now my biggest ally, is having compassion with people. Someone, you need a day off, let them have a day off. Don't, whatever. Yeah.
It's easier it's better to keep the people than instead of trying to constantly hire and train. And
there's no one there.
Well, again, another problem is there's no one there.
There's no one there.
But do you think like that's because you were mentioning about going to work for bigger chefs, which I think it's absolutely really, really good. And I've done it. I work for free in quite a few places here on the island. People thought I'm crazy.
Doing starches, nice.
Yeah, literally my day off. I'm like, I want to learn,
Brilliant.
I literally go to the head chef. I want to learn. Probably look a bit crazy, even in someone's mind. But, for me, it was all about absorbing information from here, from there and all that. Do you think people still do that? Actually getting a bit of heat now in terms of like financially, lower wage, but for a good future.
100%. Jack, who I was talking about earlier, he wants to do a stage. When we close in January, he wants to go somewhere and do a stage. I'm just trying to work out where the best place to send him. I've got a few friends in the UK. I've got a little bit of credit in the bank, I think, still in the UK with a few chefs. So I might be able to get him into a decent kitchen for 2 or 3 weeks, and because he wants to see what it's like at that level. I've warned him, but
I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, you already have the background and I'm sure like some of your techniques and skills are already from that world. So,
I've mellowed a lot over the years. I've relaxed my style a lot over the years, and I was a screamer and a shouter and be quiet and no music in the kitchen many years ago, and do this. This has got to be done by that time. That's by that, and I found it was just stressing me out more than anybody else. I've found it was counterproductive. People worried about coming to work. They're worried about making mistakes, and that's not a good place And in this day and age, people will just walk out as well. That's the difference. Mentality, expectation has changed, and the mentality has changed. People will just say, "You can't talk to me like that," and they'll go. Yeah. They'll pick their knives up and they'll walk out, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. You know, and that's a good thing because it's made a lot of chefs, including myself, completely change the way they operate for the better. And I think there's more fun in the kitchen now. We have good fun in the kitchen.
That's good.
We have a laugh. We have a very, very relaxed kitchen. You know, we have Alexa. So
probably Nik 15 years ago would have been
absolutely
and just be like
sending people home because their chef jacket wasn't ironed.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, it's just the school you kind of like being brought up with, right?
And chewing them out for it in front of everybody at the same time. You know,
so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and embarrassing people, and humiliating them. You don't know what their circumstances are. You know, he's 19 years old and he's turned up to work. Yeah, his chef's jacket's crumpled,
but he's here.
You know, it's funny how you you just set the bar so low now, don't we? Just you're here and you come. Yeah.
But then
have you got any mates? Come on.
But the truth is, these days it's hard to kind of like get that person into the kitchen in the first place.
Yeah.
What about?
I don't care what you're wearing.
Well, so staying on this topic, you know, in terms of staff, what can we do to bring this new generation in the kitchen back into the kitchen, making it a bit more like
free food, beanbags, and PlayStations?
Okay. Yeah. It was like, okay,
that's what Google did.
Okay,
that's what Google did, you know. So they did a poll, didn't they, of what people wanted, of what would make their job happier, and they chose free food, beanbags, and game stations. So that's what they got, you know. And going back to what I was saying earlier about expectations, when I left school, you had three options: hairdressing, hospitality, or the armed forces. Now, they've got the world. You know, when I was a kid, there was 4 TV channels and my dad sat in front of one of them. So I didn't want to be sat in the house. Now, there's a TV in every bedroom. There's a PlayStation. There's internet. There's everything. There's so many distractions now. And there's so many things. The waspy world of social media will tell these kids what it wants them to be. Okay, so it's shaping their mind. 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds now, they're being told, oh, you be an influencer. You can code games. Go and be this, go and be that. This is a quick buck. You'll be a billionaire. We had a lad on work experience and I said to him, you know, what do you want to, trying to be a bit inspirational. What do you want to do when you're older? He's like, I just want to be an entrepreneur. I said, okay, cool. In what? He went, just entrepreneur.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a word he'd heard. And I was like, well, what kind of business? He's like, yeah, just entrepreneur.
Nobody wants to do the work. They just want to be.
And I'm like, and I was kind of lost for like, okay. And I sort of walked off thinking, am I missing something here? Is this now a new career path? And so the youngsters coming through, hospitality just isn't an option. You don't see your friends. You know, you work every day, every hour that God sends. And the parents tell their kids from a very young age, you're special. You can be whatever you want to be. But they don't back it up with anything. You know, 99% of us are going to be Uber drivers. Yeah, let's face it. You know, 1% of the world,
the real entrepreneurs,
are the billionaires, the high achievers, the Gates, the Elon Musks of the world. But we're aspiring to be things. Well, I'm not. You know, I'm just who I am now. But the youngsters are aspiring to be things that are unachievable, I think, to majority of society. And I think, so there needs to be an element of grounding. There needs to be an element of getting a message through to youngsters that actually have a dream, but here's the summit. You need to understand the climb.
There is a ladder to that. You can't just like...
There's a climb.
Parachute yourself.
There's a climb, and I try to explain to Jack about he used to get very kind of disillusioned by things, and so I showed him the chart, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you kind of have so it's a matrix, so it's kind of 1 to 10, and then you have 2 axes here, and then kind of 1 to 10 here is your enthusiasm, and when you've just started out, you kind of 10 enthusiasm, 1 in experience on the experience axis. So you're at the top here, and you've got just enough knowledge to be dangerous. Yeah. And then when things don't go right, this starts to come down. And we call this the pinnacle of Mount Stupid, because that's where you do really fucking stupid things. Excuse my language, sorry. So we do really, really stupid things, like whatever, passing the veal jus and putting the jus down the sink and bringing the bones back to the chef because you're trying to help out. But you're at the pinnacle of Mount Stupid. And as you kind of come down on this trajectory here, this is kind of the pit of the Valley of Doom. This is where you are about 3 or 4 or 5 in experience, but all your enthusiasm is gone because you've just failed a few times here. And then the point is picking yourself up here, and we call this the path of enlightenment.
Going back out.
You come back up, and your enthusiasm is curbed because you understand the industry. So you only ever get to like a 6.5 here, but your experience is coming up to a 9 or a 10. So you're kind of here, and this is the path of enlightenment. And this is where I say to him, this is where you need to be. At any point in your career, you can end up back at the pinnacle of Mount Stupid. It doesn't matter. You could be 50 years old, and you can be back at the pinnacle of Mount Stupid. So this is fluid. Don't think this is not.
You never come back.
This is not fixed. But I'm trying to explain to him the longevity of the industry, and that's what kids. I use the word kids because it's not kids. Are young people.
Yeah.
Need to understand that if you are coming into an industry like this, it's rewarding if you're prepared to stick things out. Now, I saw something the other day where youngsters have got an attention span of 3.5 seconds now because of the shorts.
Yeah.
And we all do it. We sit there on YouTube and we're just watching 3, and something goes on for more than 4 seconds. You're like, right, go and read a book. No one reads books. Get youngsters reading books. That will change everything. Rather than just being glued to a screen, you're never going to get people reading books again. Books are, I'm afraid.
It's hard, yeah.
Sad,
I try to kind of force myself, and I've never been a book reader, but it is you're so distracted.
I wasn't until I got older, and now I love reading. I absolutely love reading now, and I read as much as I possibly can now. And from an intellect and intelligence point of view, it's helped me, in the last 10 years, I'd say. But going back to getting kids into the industry, I don't know what the answer is, quite frankly. I mean, there is just a lot of choice out there, and a lot of messages. Social media, like I said, will tell them what social media wants them to be. I watched something the other day about McDonald's are investigating ways into getting their advertising into your head whilst you're sleeping. This is government technology.
Wow.
And it's there for you to read on the internet. It was terrifying that they can subliminally message you through your phone or whatever whilst you're sleeping. And that's I think that's the next step, which in technology and AI, and who knows what's going to happen with hospitality with the event of AI, when a computer can write menus, when a computer can run a restaurant for you, when robots can deliver food, when a computer or one chef can run a kitchen with computerized cooking equipment, with AI computer equipment that can then cook the food perfectly.
Is that that's definitely gonna disrupt the industry. There's no question about it. But to a certain extent, I think technology is good. Let's be honest. To a certain extent,
I embrace it to a degree.
Yeah. But are you afraid that that's where we are heading?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I'm trying to. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and so I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve with everything and reading as much as I possibly can. And I've been using ChatGPT just to get my head around it. I think it's fascinating, but I think it needs to stop now. I think anything further could potentially become detrimental to humanity. That's worrying. Weaponization of it is terrifying, because that would only take a matter of months for AI to realize that humans are the problem on the planet. And bringing a child into this futuristic, technologically advanced world at the age I'm 47. I'm not getting any younger. and you tend to, as you get older, kind of not be interested in technology. And I feel I need to stay abreast of it, stay ahead of it for her sake, so I can try and help her navigate through it, because God knows what it's going to be like when she's a teenager. It's bad enough now with kids, so God knows what it's going to be like in 10 years time. So I feel I have a duty to kind of stay ahead of the curve, and when I'm learning about it, it's fascinating, but yeah, I think there's some big changes, some seismic changes coming to society. And I think hospitality will probably benefit in the short term. I don't know what the long term.
Yeah, I can see. You know what? Also the problem is, especially in hospitality. So you have these big chains, right? Let's say, not just chains, even smaller restaurants, which some of them can afford, but then the chains will be probably the first ones because they have a bigger purchasing power.
Yeah.
I feel like they'll be fed up. I'm sure they are by now. Not having enough stuff here, not there. And, replacing a human, if possible, will be like gold for...
Well, you look at McDonald's. Let's take the McDonald's most successful restaurant chain ever. And you look at their model. They were really the first ones to streamline everything. Even back in the 50s, they wanted to get a burger out every 70 seconds or whatever it was. So people were waiting no more than a minute and a half for their food. So they really started this revolution 60, 70 years ago. So they will be the first ones to embrace it. And I did read that they are looking at their first humanless restaurant within the next few years, where everything will be computerized. You go in, you order on a pad, it goes through. And if you think everything's pretty much pre-cooked there anyway, so they're only reheating it. But if they've got a machine which can do it, why then wouldn't you take out the human error? Why wouldn't you remove the human error? When a computer isn't going to lie, a computer isn't going to, undercook something.
Everything is going to be consistent. The same.
Yeah. So from a corporation point of view, this has to be the next step in the evolutionary chain of food. Small restaurants, a few places try with the ordering on the iPad and not speaking to the waiting staff, but I think that completely sanitizes the reason we go out for food. It's going out for dinner is
interaction.
It's visceral. It's something you speak to the waiter, you taste the wine.
There's the whole experience, I guess.
Yeah. There's a whole kind of dance we go through when we go to a fine restaurant. They take your coat and you sit down and they make you feel, special, and they fawn over you. And some people like that, some people don't like that. But like I say, there's a whole kind of theatre to going out to a restaurant, and I don't think you will ever get away from that. I just think it will become fewer and fewer and fewer. So potentially, that is the answer to the chef shortage problem, because if the fast food places and the kind of casual dining that don't need as many staff, maybe the places that do then require staff, that will filter back down. Maybe that will kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe people will just say, well, we don't need to work anymore because we've got computers to do everything for us. And we'll all end up like the cartoon Wall-E, where we just go around in floating chairs and shouting at computers.
Yeah, crazy times. Yeah, I guess we'll even see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a scary thought, but I also heard another theory, which is kind of interesting. I'm following this guy that he was like, he was basically addressing this to the public. He's like, what was scary? The tractor. He was like, when the farmer was, the
Luddites.
and then the tractor, basically everybody was afraid that it'll take a lot of jobs, but then that open other opportunities. So
I did that with the cotton mills when they invented the spinning jenny, and you had
maybe
the revolutions.
Maybe in although this is accelerating quite fast, maybe it's nothing to kind of worry. At least for the time being, it might not be that something to worry about that much. Now, going back to our human stuff, because
completely digressed. I'm sorry.
No,
tangential.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
I think it was great because it's also something that sooner or later it will impact the industry, and it already kind of does in certain ways. Yeah, absolutely. It was great to cover that. No question about it. Now, obviously, AI is not going to be able to select certain, at least at this point, getting in touch with the farmer, see what ingredients are available. Well, to a degree, it can, but kind of like getting what you need, combining ingredients in a certain way, that form a dish.
Yeah.
Now, how do you kind of like keep this constant supply of ingredients here on the island? Because I know many chefs have this issue. You already kind of like touch on a few points.
Yeah.
How do you do it in your kitchen?
I think it starts with good relationships with the suppliers. So I think you have to find the supplier that resonates with you, and you have to be in daily contact with them. There has to be a person, especially in a small environment like this. You can't just have a faceless company where you leave a message and, at 7 a.m, your produce is there. You have to have contact, and that's human contact is so important. I'm in daily contact with Jamie at Fungi. We text each other on a daily basis about what he's got coming in, and if he doesn't have such and such, he'll try and find an alternative. And so I try to work closely with a select few. We use the guys at Three Oaks Vineries, so we know what we're getting: tomatoes, peppers, chilies consistently. That's from this point to this point in the year. I use a guy called Leo Schofield for my scallops. So Leo texts me when he's going diving, what do you need? And then we do big batches. So we'll do 10 kilos at a time. Lobsters, I use Aquamar, so I can go down on my way to work. So I drive past there in the morning. So I go down there and I can pick up 30 lobsters. I can select them. So no females, nothing with berries. So X, Y, and Z. I know that when I pick the crabs up, I can check if the shells are too soft. So that for me is a really important part of the selection process of what we serve. And I use Valley as well. I use the guys up at Valley who,
for me.
Yeah. Pretty much for a lot of our stuff as well, a lot of our dry goods, and they're really good with the Asian. They've got a lot of Asian products. I think they
got quite good from the past years. They were not that.
They're really good.
Yeah.
They are.
When
really
when I was still working, they were like quite small and not
Yeah.
that prepared with quite a few ingredients, but they got quite good from what I heard from you.
Never
guys.
let me down.
Okay.
In the time I've used them, they've never let me down.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. Is Martin, I think. Yeah,
Martin.
I'm trying to get him.
Get him
on
on
the podcast. I'm trying
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, like, it's complicated for them as well, like staff shortage and all that. And he did say that and maybe even Jamie from Fungi if he's available, because he's quite well into his stuff and he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. So hopefully I can get them as well. But what are your favorite local ingredients? Do you have favorite local ingredients?
Tomatoes are amazing.
And
scallops, best scallops I've ever eaten. Outside of Scotland, the scallops are so well looked after here because they're all hand dived. And the guys that dive them know what they're doing. So they look after the fish from the minute they catch them to the minute it gets to me. They're in pristine condition. I mean, I've cooked all over the world on yachts and private houses and et cetera, and we've cooked for some some fairly wealthy people who have some very exacting standards. I wouldn't think twice about putting Jersey scallops on any plate anywhere in the world. They're that good, in my opinion. Some people might disagree with me, but
I only cook scallops here. To be fair, first time ever. When I came from Romania, I only worked for a bit in like an Italian restaurant. Didn't have any. I mean, I'm from northern Romania. We're far away from the sea anyway. Now I know you can get ingredients everywhere, but at least at that time, they tried to keep it kind of like as local as an Italian restaurant in Romania can be, But nothing like that. So it was first time here, and I do like the Jersey scallops. I wish my wife was a bit more adventurous. Is a big word because scallops are many people like them, but she, in terms of seafood, she's very specific. She doesn't really pretty much anything.
My wife eats no fish at all. I have to. If she's at work and I want some fish, I have to buy the fish, bring it into the house. I cook it. I then have to bag everything up and put it. She'll walk into the house and go, "Oh, you've been cooking fish." She can smell it. I
do like my seafood pasta when it's exactly like that. She comes in, did you close the door? It was like, it smells again. Did you use these to cut this? Like,
how do you know? How do you know? It's like forensically goes through the kitchen and knows what utensils.
And I genuinely wish it was a bit more on this side, because I would love to give a try to like quite a few kind of like different seafood which we have available here on the island, but just doing it for myself, it feels like too much sometimes. I feel like I could eat it, I could go through lobsters and crabs and whatever, in one go, but I just feel like, it's got to be like an experience, and just on my own, it just doesn't feel like that. So yeah, it's a shame that, I can't make it work. What can I say?
Hey-ho. Yeah. But yeah, no, the produce here is great. The stuff you can get hold of and stuff that some local growers. We have a lady called Kim who grows some amazing stuff on her allotment. She brought loganberries in the other day. She grows incredible lemons.
Lemons,
yeah. We got about 50 lemons off her last year, which were great.
Oh, wow.
We made a load of limoncello.
That's nice.
Yeah, we made bags and bags of gallons of limoncello with it.
It freezes very well.
Yeah. So she's great. She grows flowers and all sorts of stuff for us, calendula and borage and edible stuff and edible flowers. She sometimes goes down and gets seaweed for us at very low tide. So gets the purple dulse and stuff for us. So that's nice. And there's a lot of stuff on this island. If you scratch beneath the surface and you have a small enough menu that you can incorporate this, and you can have it on for, say it's available for a week. So you put it on and then it's not available again for like 3 weeks. You've got to have that flexibility within your menu.
Is that how you incorporate these like new quirky ingredients?
Yeah.
Because obviously they're not available for a long period of time. Yeah. So I guess specials are
and we can just reprint the menu whenever we want. Everything's done in-house. So we can change dishes on a daily basis. We don't really like doing anymore. I used to do that when I was younger and I was an idealist. Yeah. I'd change old menus. I'm going to change this. I don't like that. Yeah. Now,
that can be also detrimental for the business and profits and everything else in a way.
It's also, it doesn't give you consistency. So the guys in the kitchen, if you're constantly changing dishes and changing how you do and changing plating up and changing, they come into work thinking, oh God, what's he going to do today? So
confused every day.
You're confused every day, yeah. And then you're struggling to get your mise en place done for lunch, and you put a whole new dish on, and there's 6 elements to it, and everybody's running around like idiots. Those days are gone. I'm done with that. When I worked at the River Cafe, they'd rewrite the menu every single day. And we're talking like 12 starters, 12 mains, antipasto.
Great skills to have.
5 or 6 different pastas that you'd be making gnocchi, making whatever different types of hand rolled pastas every day, and then at 3 o'clock everything like that was sent to staff. So you'd all sit down and have a big meal, and then you'd go back in the kitchen and you'd re-prep everything for dinner service, and that was full on. That was that was a great skill to learn, but there's an element there for disaster, because if you don't get one thing right and it's 5 to 6 and all of a sudden your pasta's not right, or you haven't done something you forgot to do, you're in the weeds then, aren't you? So now we change the menu seasonally. We occasionally change the menu during the seasons if things change or there's no availability, but we try to set the menu. We try and do 4 wholesale changes every year. And from a consistency point of view, from a cost point of view, which you have to think about now, because if I can fix my prices with Valley, like turkey, for instance, I'm negotiating on turkey prices now for Christmas because I get in now. Yeah. I've get my prices set at X per kilo. I'm not then scratching around in November trying to get 30 boned and rolled turkeys, and they're saying, oh, it's £27 a kilo now, when in September I could have got it for £9 a kilo.
Can you still do these now? I remember in back in the days, because I was talking to a few guys here on the podcast. Now prices changing, they're quite volatile compared to what they used to be. Maybe they settle a bit. I don't know.
They are coming down slightly, noticeably for me. Cooking oil is the one thing that stabilized. I think it went up to 52, 53 quid a barrel. Now it's back down to sort of early 30s.
Okay.
So that's good. Yeah. And so beef has come down in price, I've noticed. Fillet in particular has come down in price quite considerably. You just have to be on it daily. Yeah. So Jamie's very good. Jamie gives me some select prices and he sets those fortnightly for me. So things I buy consistently get those prices are set, and we review them every fortnight depending on obviously what's happening, Rungis, wherever he's getting stuff from, whatever's happening with prices in England. But there was an element for about a year. There was, it was like that. It was just think of a number and double it. It was crazy last winter with what happened with the prices. Potatoes, 30 quid for a bag of, 35 quid for a bag of unwashed potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess now it's in a better terms with that, because as I said, I had a few guys here saying that prices are changing, if not probably daily.
Yeah, daily. Yeah.
But okay, so even daily was accurate. Then you can't have a menu like before, at least when I work. You have these meetings with, let's say, with the supplier, or you call them, it's like, look, I want, let's say, duck breast, this whole menu, this whole summer, this is the price. And it's going to stay at that price no matter what, obviously extreme situations, but more or less, that this is the price that you're going to run through the summer with. But now it probably changed.
I mean, yes, but if you can, when you cost a dish, you can give yourself a bit of wiggle room. Yeah. And let's say you're buying lamb rump in at $6.50 a rump. There's a potential for fluctuation there. So say it's 5 quid, and you think, okay, well, worst case scenario, it's going to cost me $6.75. So you just cost that in at $6.75, because then you're going to make a bigger margin there. If at all, it's not going to go any more over. And if it goes over $7.50, you stop. You have to change your menu. You stop buying it, because you then have to think of the other end of that, where customers are not going to pay 35 quid, let's say, for a lamb rump. There's a ceiling to what people will pay. So you kind of have to look at that and then give yourself some wiggle room within that margin. So if it does go up by 30, 40p, 50p, it's not going to kill your margins. But equally, if it drops sub 6 quid, well, then you're making some money. Yeah. So you have to kind of be clever. And I've always employed, it's not just now. I've always done that. You always have to kind of think ahead. You have to plan ahead, and you have to give yourself, a couple of quid tolerance either side of,
Yeah, it's like, fair. You see, that's good advice, because I work just for as I said, my experience as a head chef was quite short. I know that it was a bit more of communication with the executive chef, and it was more done, in the office than, in terms of prices than in the kitchen, if that makes sense. So I didn't really have too much to say from that point of view. It was just like, okay, if you guys, this is the price you can get it with, then I'll just work with what you give me.
And you work within that, absolutely. You work within that. Yeah. And you also have certain dishes on your menu which you make hefty margins on. And so if there is a fluctuation, say on fish is the one thing which fluctuates. One day it could be 23 a kilo. The next day it could be
because it's not there.
17.50 a kilo. Yeah. So that fluctuates. So prices on fish that can be a killer, because if you don't check your prices, and let's say you've ordered turbot and you've been paying $19.50 for turbot for a week, and then you don't check your prices, and then your next batch of turbot comes in, it's 27. It's gone up by £10 a kilo, and you're still giving 135 gram portion. Well, you're in trouble, because all of a sudden your margins are not coming in there. But if you can monitor it, and that if there's a couple of quid tolerance either side, you have got high volume dishes which you're making, let's say 90% margin on. They should, in theory, at the end of the year, they should pick up a little bit of the slack. So therefore, at the end of the year, your margins shouldn't be affected by more than 1 or 2%. Okay. That, in theory, sometimes you get to the end of the month, and you go, bloody hell, we've done really well, and then other times you go, oh my God, what's happened there? And then you go back through your invoices and you go,
that's why.
Oh yeah, look, cooking oil happened to us last year. Cooking oil jumped from 30 to 50 pounds. Well, you're going through 3 drums of cooking oil a week, let's say, or if you're a fish and chip shop, 5 or 6 drums. That price, that difference when you're working in small margins, like say a fish and chip shop or something like that.
That's huge,
because you're working by volume. Your business model is different, because you're saying you're only going to make 55-60% margin, which is a very in hospitality is a very narrow margin, but you're going on volume. So you're going to sell 10,000 units of something, but you're only going to make 5% on it.
Prime Fry mentioned about that. Yeah, absolutely. Now we know that you're busy. Now 1 day a week being off, is not a huge amount, but yeah, for a chef, it's probably kind of like powering through it and
You have to.
not crying about it, and there's nothing you can do. Do you have favorite restaurants? Do you have time for restaurants here in Jersey?
In Jersey?
Yes.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I mean, I went to Longville last week for my honeymoon. Honeymoon, what am I talking about? My anniversary. Honeymoon was a long time ago. I went for anniversary. That was fantastic. That was the first time I've eaten there. It was superb because obviously Longville is affiliated to Sumas. Malcolm, who owns Longville, started Sumas, and Paul's mum is Malcolm's sister. So Sumas, Sue and Malcolm. That's where the what's when you join two words up? Portmanteau. So it's a word combined together. Sue and Malcolm, Sumas, and that's where the word comes from.
I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the first time I've eaten at Longville since I've been here, but it was fantastic. We ate at Samfire earlier this year. That was outstanding. That was really, really
Tom
good.
is a good chef. Yeah.
Really, really thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish. It was a hefty bill. But it was a bit of a
for the experience.
It was an experience. Yeah, it's not something you do. It isn't
Yes.
something I would do every day. Maybe once a year or twice a year we'd go out there. I really like Kismet down at Wayne.
Yes.
Yeah, I get on with Chris really well. We've become really good friends. But I love what he does down there, and I've helped him out in his food van a few times. Well, once at the boat show. I cooked burgers and hot dogs for him for a day, which was interesting. It was really good fun. We drank rum punch and cooked burgers. It was great.
Well, that's it.
And I think Bass and Lobster. Dave and Kirsty. They do some really good stuff down there. Dave. Yeah. He does some really wacky flavors, and I quite like that because actually, it's completely different to how I cook. So I quite like that. I quite like someone who's got the balls
and obviously
to put some of the flavors together, but they work.
Yeah, it's also the power as well, because obviously owning your own restaurant. I mean, you know exactly how it is. You can decide.
But when it's your own restaurant, have the balls to do that as well. When it's your own money as well. It's more because I was very, very safe. I had my own restaurant. We had a very successful pub, and again, it was all built upon classics, consistency, not changing things, not trying to reinvent the wheel, and so I love what Dave does down there because he doesn't give a
he changes how he feels.
He's like,
I'm sure he's got moments.
And if it's in his head and it's blue cheese and truffle ice cream, it's going on the menu. He doesn't care.
I'm sure he goes to sleep with one thought and he wakes up in the morning with the other, and he's just like,
That's right. That's what's happening today, boys. Yeah, I've become quite good friends with Dave and Kirsty, so I have a bit of insight into it and into how Dave's brain works. I love it. It's great.
So we have quite a number of restaurants on the island. Do you think like we need something else? Would you like to see something different here in Jersey?
Right. How do I say this without upsetting people? I think there needs to be a bit more originality. I do think it's running the risk of it becoming a duopoly of just Liberation and Randall's. And I know David Cameron is doing his hardest to try and create different menus in each place.
Is David Cameron
he's the
executive chef of Randall's?
Right?
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy. Lovely, lovely guy. And I spoke to him a few times.
I emailed him. I'm not sure whether... Yeah, I'll try to get him on the podcast too.
Really good guy.
I'd like to get the opinion of like bigger... Whether not chains, because chain is probably a lot to say. Chains would be McDonald's, but
it's a chain. It's a chain.
It's kind of a chain. You can say almost like a franchise, in a way.
Yeah, so it is a chain. Yeah, it's a chain. It's a chain organisation that's owned, and it's a company that's owned by shareholders.
Yeah. It's just as a smaller scale than McDonald's. That's what we're going to say. Yeah. So I would like to get their opinion, because in the end, I do want to have perspectives both from smaller businesses, but also someone from there. I'm not sure whether they're open for it, but I'll send the invite. And
what you run the risk of is the entire island being owned by 3 companies or 4 companies, and it strangles competition. So it stops, say, you and I having the opportunity to ever own a pub. The only opportunity we would have would be to take a tenancy on a pub. Well, then you're just really a glorified landlord paying a rent back to a pub company. So I think in the balance of fairness, I think there needs to be more independent places, but then we live in a capitalist society. So you can't
control that.
You can't have your cake and eat it. So you have one or the other. I mean, if you've got the money behind you, then fine, go and do it. But I think 90% of people who've got money behind them won't sink it into a restaurant these days, because I heard something funny recently, and it said the best way to make a small fortune in hospitality is to start with a big fortune. And it's true.
Yeah.
And
it's so volatile as an industry.
Volatile. The margins are, the margins
tiny.
are what, 5%. If you run it really tight for a year, it's 5%. Well, working 75, 80 hours a week for a 5% return on an investment. Anyone with half a brain is going to go, well, I'm not going to do that.
That's why you have the smaller businesses are mainly people that are very passionate about continuing it.
Yeah.
So it's something that we don't give enough credit to, a restaurant owner that has got like a small place that, whether we good and with bad, like Sumas, for example, after that many years, they continue doing it and they're committed on continuing doing it, I guess. Yeah, it's definitely
doing the same thing year after year, expecting a different outcome. That's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Yeah,
you're right.
Isn't it? Yeah,
that's what
repeatedly doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah. The world is kind of changing from certain perspectives into bad, especially for this industry. And the outcome, in a way, it still needs to be consistently kind of like good, which is really hard.
And you have to
obtain.
keep up with customers. Yeah. Customers have evolved in my time massively. People when I was a junior chef, going out for a meal was a special occasion. So it wasn't something that people did every week. A very few people did. So they would save up, they go out on birthdays, anniversaries, and it would be a checked tablecloth and a bowl of red food. That's what a special occasion was when I was a kid. And I think we touched upon it earlier about how casual dining changed the whole landscape of hospitality. And now food is everywhere. People have ingredients available to them everywhere, on every shelf. You have the internet, you have magazines, everybody's talking about food. So people have become more educated about food. But as a result, what that does is that creates monsters. So you have people coming into dining rooms thinking they know more than the people cooking the food. And that's a dangerous dynamic. And you have to keep up with what people want and the demands of people, and the evolution of the customer. Now it's just been added. Soya has been added to this allergens. There's a new allergen been added. We had 3 of them last week. Never had it before. I think potentially.
Now you need to keep up with that as well as the costs of like certain ingredients.
And I think allergens is good because it's saving lives. But I don't ever remember, up until 2010, I don't ever remember people coming in with as many allergies as they have now. I remember one lady saying she had a stone fruit allergy and it would kill her, and then she ordered the white peach panna cotta for a dessert, and she said, well, a little bit will be all right, but an hour and a half earlier, any stone fruit will kill her dead. We had a lady once come in who I was allergic to. Now, listen to what I'm going to say. I'm allergic to penne pasta. How can you be allergic to a shape? How on earth can you be allergic to a shape? And when we drilled down into it,
was gluten?
No, she'd had a prawn and salmon pasta about 5 years ago at Bella Italia, and it had made her sick. But it was penne that was making her sick, not the prawns, the pasta, the cream, any of the other high risk items that went into the pasta dish. It couldn't mean any of that made her ill. It had to be the shape of a pasta, and then as a result, she couldn't eat it now because she was allergic to penne pasta.
Wow. Well, that's something else I never heard.
I've had salt allergies as well. Someone claimed to have a salt allergy.
Oh.
again,
things go through the roof. Yeah, the
body's made up of 90% crystalline sodium in your body, so.
That's crazy. Okay, so
Yeah.
in terms of like, after doing this for that many years, how do you balance it now, having a family, everything else, probably is a hard question to answer.
You need to ask my wife.
Is she in the same,
She was. She dipped her toe into the industry when we owned a pub.
So I guess that helped in a way, because she understood, the behind the scenes and how much work.
The other day when I said, I think we're looking at buying another pub, and she said, over my dead body. What was I? And she said, "Don't ask me to live there. Don't ask me to work in it. I don't even want to set foot in it." So
yeah.
So my wife's actually a ballet teacher.
Oh wow, that's actually so cool.
She had a ballet school, which she sold to buy a pub, which I don't think she's forgiven me. She still hasn't forgiven me for it.
Okay, no question that she's not pro getting it.
She enjoyed it, and she did really, really well, and won quite a lot of awards for front of house. Because she said it's no different to putting on a show. It's no different to working in the theatre. It's no different in musical theatre. Every night you're putting on a show. You're going out there and you're putting on a face, and you're being someone to keep those people, those punters happy. And but I don't think I would never ask her to go back into it. I'd never even.
So if something is going to happen, it's going to be basically on your own from at least from this perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. I mean, if she's got other dreams that she wants to pursue, and she's happy with the career, I guess it's fair to say that.
She's landed a good job here in Jersey, so which we're both happy with. It's good time. It's term time only, so she works within a school, which is great. And how do I balance it? I don't at the moment, if I'm honest with you.
Well, with 1 day a week is complicated.
1 day a week at the moment, but we will go back to being closed. From September onwards, we're shut Sundays and Mondays. It's only now we're just trying to make hay while the sun shines. That extra day, there's nowhere's open in Gorey. Other than Moorings, I think, do a limited menu on a Monday. We're the only place open serving full menu. I think tomorrow we've got nearly 50 booked tomorrow.
Yeah, you got to take advantage of this time, because after that, winter months are absolutely dead in that area.
COVID skewed everything. COVID completely skewed the landscape of everything for us. No one really knew what was going to come out of the other end of it. And so Paul... we had a great year. So last year we had a fantastic year. And then we got into this winter and we saw the decline. This winter was really, really bad. And so what we've done this year is we've not taken on another chef. So we've reduced the team by one chef de partie.
To recover the bad time.
And no, because not really to recover it, to future-proof this winter.
Because if you get to the same level, then it'll be really, really difficult to continue.
We don't want to be in a position where we have to take bank loans. Paul runs his business very well, and he doesn't want to be in a position where he is having to take, bank loans in the winter and then spending the summer paying them off. So we've cut the team down. We're all working. We're being remunerated for it as well. We're not doing it for free. We've cut the team down by one, running on kind of 1.5 KP rather than 2 full-time KPs, and just watching the pennies, and hopefully the pounds will take care of themselves for the winter. We can really push hard now, May to October, and bank as much as we can. That then gives us a buffer, and with the team, we'll strip the team down in the winter as well. So we've gone to a skeleton team during the winter. And then we'll close Sunday night, all day Monday, all day Tuesday during the winter. So we'll do Sunday lunch, which is always good, and then close in the evening. Monday, Tuesday off for everybody, back in Wednesday, push Wednesday to Saturday. And that's what we'll do during the winter. And hopefully we can create enough of a financial buffer that will see us through a potentially bad winter. We don't know. We could have a mild winter.
We've got to prepare for it,
We could have a mild winter, and we could have the terrace open until... the last week until half term in October.
It's a beautiful view from there.
Exactly. And then that brings people in, and then we have the set menu, and we do champagne dinners, and we've got a few chefs that are friends of mine which are going to come over and do takeovers this winter. So that generates a bit of interest. Going to do a blues night. So we'll do lots and lots and lots of stuff during the winter, to midweek stuff to try and, just
Get a few people in, yeah.
Stem the flows of those, lunches where you're doing 4 people, but you've got all your lights on, you've got your heat on, you've got everything on, you've got stoves burning downstairs, you've got wages, you've got three or 4 full-time chefs, you've got 2 full-time front of house. That all needs to be paid for. Yeah. So I think now if we're focusing and really drilling down on, especially on the margins as well, really drill down on the margins this year to try and make sure that we're here this time next year.
Yeah, I can see you thinking about. I think if you were in a different kind of situation, probably just being a head chef and never an owner, probably you would have had a different perspective. But because you understand the back end of it, from electricity to whatever the cost.
It also comes from ingrained into me from my father as a kid. He's so, I don't want to say tight because he might watch this, and but he is
about
incredibly, and he always used to say, watch the pennies and the pounds take care of themselves, and that's, he watched every single penny, and he was a successful guy, and he always tried to instill that in me as a youngster. It went in one ear and out the other. I didn't care. I'd leave lights on, I'd leave the hot water on, as you do when you're a kid. But actually, those lessons come home to roost, and then when you've got your own business and you realise and you're walking around, people effing and blinding, turning lights. What's this? Why is this door open? Who's left the window open? I do it at home now as well. Yeah. No one touches the thermostat other than me. Couldn't leave that thermostat. Yeah. Who's turned the thermostat up? Yeah. And so you have to be vigilant. Otherwise your business won't. There's no point in there's no point in being a busy fool as well. There's no point in turning over $1 million to spend 1.1 million.
Yeah.
What's the point in that? What's the point in even being there? Turn the place into a block of flats and go to the Bahamas for 10 weeks a year. If we're there because we enjoy creating food, we enjoy creating an experience for people, but it has to wipe its nose.
Yeah, absolutely.
The business has to wipe its nose at the end of the year.
The business has got to be a business and profitable. Otherwise, how are you going to maintain all that? But for people that want to get in touch with you, know more about you, are you on social media? Where are
Not
you
really.
more
I
present?
don't really do much social media. Not really. I don't really do a lot of social media. I do a bit of Twitter, but that's mainly football. I don't tweet about food. I'm quite. I don't really do Instagram. I try it, but I find I don't really like that world. I don't really like the Instagram world. I don't like the fakeness of it. I'm quite comfortable in my own skin, and therefore I don't need to project. I feel I don't need to project an image that isn't what it is. And so I tried to buy into it a few times. I've got an Instagram account, but I don't think I've logged into it for a while. But I don't really. So Sumas Instagram, by all means go to.
Or people that want to meet you, you're there.
I'm there every day, all day, every day. Anyone bloody the hell would want to meet me, for Christ's sake? Sweaty, angry chef.
Okay, absolutely.
I mean, Sumas, go to the go to the Paul does all the socials, and if you want to see anything and see what we're doing and keep up to date with what we're doing, then by all means go to social, go to the Sumas social media. But
other than that, in real life,
time for it. I don't and I just end up arguing with people. I just that's that.
So it's a very safe way. If you stay away from it, then
that's why I like Twitter, because you can have your say.
Yeah. Twitter became quite free.
And that's it. And I quite like that. I quite like the conversation that goes on Twitter. I quite enjoy that, but I don't get involved in hospitality because of, I try not to let my personal opinions and things like that bleed over into my professional life. I've done it in the past. I was the one sitting there at 1 o'clock in the morning getting offended by what people had written about the pub on Facebook, and writing pages and pages of diatribe, and now it's just let it go, ignore it. They're just opinions.
I guess that comes with experience and age and everything.
It also it kind of comes with a bit of self-enlightenment as well, where once you stop worrying about what people think about you, your life becomes so much easier. And just owning what's in front of you, ownership it's something I was going to touch on earlier, actually, about Jack, teaching him to own what's in front of him. I read a book called Extreme Ownership by a guy called Jocko Willink, who's a Navy SEAL, Special Forces Navy SEAL, and he's written, he led a tour in Afghanistan, and he got a couple of guys of his platoon were killed because of him, and he went back to the court-martial proceedings and he owned it, and he said, this is my fault, and he took the blame for everything. And as a result, what they did is the generals that he was in front of, they actually gave him then a bigger platoon and they trusted him that he could see his faults, and they trusted him to move on. And so the lessons I took from that, and which I'm trying to teach, especially to Jack, is own what is in front of you. Make your own grass the greenest. Everybody else's is fertilized with bullshit. Make your own grass the greenest, and then your life becomes much easier. And so I think once you realize that and you have that kind of, that moment of enlightenment of actually, this is about my square, what's in front of me, be the hero in your own story, be the hero in your own journey, life becomes much easier. And so, I just got rid of all of the social media, stopped worrying about what anyone thought about me. Couldn't care less what you think about me.
I mean, I'm doing it, but it's the nature of the job also. And, but to be fair, in terms of like caring, if people, appreciate what I do, then it's fine. If they don't, then do it better. There are 1,000 reasons not to do what I do, in whether it's the cooking channel, whether it's this, because English is my second language. I could, I shouldn't do this probably, or there's so many reasons.
You should, of course, you should do it. Of course, it makes no difference.
Yeah, but the thing is,
you enjoy it.
I do. But the thing is, there's so many. If you think about it, if you kind of like dig deep into it, and overthink it in a way, then probably you shouldn't do probably most of the things that you do. But if they feel appropriate,
life would be boring, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly,
life would be boring.
Yeah,
and take a risk. So the people that criticize you are the people that have never taken risks. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're the ones that will sit in their ivory towers telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing. But then they've had a safe job, the same job for 20 years. They've driven, they have the same safe car and they go on the same holiday every year. But they're the ones that will criticize you for putting yourself out there. So again, block out the noise.
I luckily learned how to do that. And I'm so happy. I mean, you get annoying every now and then, but not to the point that I can't leave at night. Couldn't care less.
Yeah, I briefly touched on restaurants and owning them, but I opened a restaurant which I closed after 3 months, which was a massive mistake and it was a massive failure. And I had an exchange with someone, and he didn't enjoy the food that he'd had, and he said, "Oh, yeah, but judging by what I had, no wonder your restaurant failed." And I just thought, you know what? And I I dug in and I had a look at his social, and I thought, I wanted to reply and I didn't. And I just thought, this person has never taken a risk in their life. You've never failed. So you can't criticize someone. If you've never taken a chance and you've never failed in life, then you don't even have a seat at the table when it comes to criticizing. Sit around a table with 30 entrepreneurs, here comes that word again, 30 businessmen and entrepreneurs, and I guarantee you, each of them have had several
failures,
things that have failed, because it's the only way you learn. And again, that's what I'm trying to teach Jack. It's the only way you learn is to fail and feel the pinch. And going back to schools, competition is really important in schools, and they're phasing competition out. And trophies for 7th place, what that does is that devalues the person who's tried really hard and the person that has worked really, really hard to get their PB up. I'm talking kids, but you work and you push and you train and you train and you train and you've reached a pinnacle. And then this person who comes in last gets the same trophy as you. You're embarrassing the person who's in 7th because they know they don't deserve a trophy, but they get one as a participation trophy. And the person who's worked really hard, you've just devalued and everything that they've worked hard for.
And life is not like that. I think in a way, I don't want to, obviously, it's all these like try to integrate and people and make it look like we're all happy and all that, which I agree to a certain extent, but life is not like that.
Life isn't like that.
If you're not first in certain situation, you don't exist.
Life's shit, and you need to try hard.
And maybe
hard.
if let's say that in a way, if you are 7 and some of them you don't, it's also a way of like thinking, 7 is actually okay. If I still get something for it, it can be the reverse in a way. And I still okay if I get something for it. But then knowing that you only get third, second, or third something.
It gives you something to strive to achieve to. Otherwise, life becomes boring.
I agree.
Life becomes really boring, and you need to have goals. You need to set goals, and you need to fail. And kids need to understand failure, because that pinch, the hurt of losing, either it separates the wheat from the chaff, because either you give up and go, that's not for me, or you enjoy that and you go, right, I want to push on.
Yeah.
I want to be the best. I want to achieve something. And we have to have that. You have to be able to differentiate between that in society. And we don't, I think we're going down a road where it's all kind of blending into one, and we're all supposed to be good sportsmen, and we're all supposed to, be magnanimous in defeat. And actually, no, that's not human nature.
Yeah, and also it's almost like coming back to a fake reality, which we were talking about in terms of like chefs on TV. This is how they look like, and then when you get hit by a real kitchen, it's a totally different environment, and you're not prepared for it.
No,
that 7th place will not get you anywhere.
It's what about your participation trophies now, sunshine?
Yeah. So I think it's difficult, and I don't know. I don't have children myself, but one thing which I said to my wife when we will have, I said, I will not let them win. I'm genuinely.
No.
I'm like, you got to know that, life is not.
I'm better than you. I pay the bills, so I win.
And to the point that, I think life is just going to be hard on you, and you need to be prepared like from early age. Not that I need to get them through a boot camp or something, but. Parenting has changed. Like my dad would quite happily tell me I was shit at something, quite happily tell me I was no good at something, for that very reason, because he wouldn't sugarcoat it. Now parents are best friends with their kids, and they want to encourage their children. And I'm not criticizing people's parenting. I think it's good.
And I'm not criticizing people's parenting skills, but you need to set your child up. When you get out into the real world, you're not special. Yeah. You're just a member of society.
And also, you're not going to be there to support him sometimes.
Not there, And that's a wake-up call when
whatever.
Youngsters come into the kitchen and it's a different world. And I get it's a different world. And they're just not ready for it. They're not ready for the real world. And I think that's scary. Not scary, I don't know, because maybe was I ready for the real world? I don't know. But I thought I was. But I thought I was a lot of things. And I think I don't know whether schools can help there. I'm not sure if schools can help in that. How do you ready someone for the real world? Do you teach them to open bank accounts? I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think school... Okay, arguably, I don't think school ever prepared you for life.
No.
Yeah.
No.
To a certain degree,
but
probably.
Also, and I'm going to say something really controversial now. I was bullied at school, and it did me no harm. And I'm going to get shot down for that, because bullying isn't right, and I would and I don't agree with bullying. But equally, it toughened me up, and it got me ready for what people really think about you and really say, and I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
How do I backtrack this?
But no,
now?
I
it did me no harm.
Yeah, I see it, in a way that this was your story.
I was bullied bullied in kitchens as well. Yeah. And I vowed never to be a bully in a kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same, to be fair, and it's something that probably happened to most of us. But if you learn from it and you try to change it, I think that also, as crazy as it sounds, it kind of did well for the world, because you try to change from now forward to not be that person. And
now there's more conversations about it. So, but I believe online bullying is worse than any bullying that we encountered in school. I think the murky world of social media is the biggest danger to youngsters at the moment. The online world is terrifying. Yeah. But yeah. Hey,
Nik,
there we go.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Genuinely. And I do say kind of like, I think I end these all the time with people that I enjoy with all the podcasts I've done. They were like touching different points, and I always say, hopefully we'll see you in future episodes. And I genuinely do hope, because you got such a different perspective and also so much knowledge about this industry. And it would be great, to...
Fake it till you make it. So I'm still doing it.
Well, I don't know how you do it, but you do it well. So I'm sure we'll see you in future episodes.
I'd love to do
Thank you.
another one. Yeah, I really would. I've really enjoyed it.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah,
Brilliant.
pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
Pleasure.
Cheers.